Each of you bring your right arm to the square. Each of you bow your head and say yes.
So plain and precious. Finally, the Book of Mormon is the keystone of
Emmanuel.
Just as the arch crumbles if the keystone is removed, so does all the church fall with the truthfulness of the Book of Mormon. The enemies of the church understand this clearly.
One of our brethren some years ago spoke of the payment of tithing as fire insurance. Nonetheless, the word of the Lord is clear that those who do not keep the commandments and observe the laws of God shall be burned at the time of his coming. For that shall be a day of judgment, a day of sifting, a day of separating the good from the evil. I would venture a personal opinion that no event has occurred in all the history of the earth as dreadful as will be the day of the second coming, as fraught with the destructive forces of nature, as consequential for the nations of the earth, as terrible for the wicked, and as wonderful for the righteous.
This is not the Church of Emmanuel, Christ of Latter-day Saints, Joseph Smith. This is the Church of Jesus Christ.
Travis Wingitzel. The other day I received an email asking me about Revelation chapter 11 and if this applies to Salt Lake City, Utah. It's a person who's been following me for a while and knows and understands what I'm talking about. And understands that the Book of Mormon, and thus Joseph Smith, are in the learning of the Jews, and therefore is not the same religion, is not the same Christ, is not the same interpretation of Scripture. Because Constantine created Christianity, and in so doing created a new religion, a new Christ, a new God, that violates the Jewish Scriptures. The Ten Commandments were specifically given to warn the Jews not to pursue the gods of the Greeks, Romans, and Constantine, and Islam. And yet, Christians and Islam both embrace the Ten Commandments as theirs, applying to their God and Christ, which is abominable. You become anti-Semitic. In fact, both Constantine and Muhammad claimed to be the fulfillment of Jewish prophecy of the latter-day Messiah, Christ. And so thus they are both false prophets, false Christs. Real easy breezy. And yet, both Islam and Christianity pull the beam and the moat, making false accusations against others for being a false Christ and false God. And so what Christianity did with this first creed of Nicaea under Constantine was to reinterpret the Jewish scriptures into literal history. The prophets are prophets because they predict the future. They are not prophets because they are in the title of prophet, and that therefore everything they say is therefore prophetic? That's stupid. That's creating a new definition that did not belong with the original meaning of the word. And yet that's exactly what Christianity did, was begin to create new words for standard known meanings, all part of that abomination. And so, as you can obviously tell already, as a Mormon audience at this video for the first time in your existence, because YouTube, for some reason, oopsied and allowed you to see it. I've been on here for years, guys. I've been doing lots of videos. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, yeah, it's blatantly false. It's maliciously false. And so for you to remain a Mormon when it's so blatantly obvious that it is not in accordance with the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith makes you an abomination. And yet you attack me as the abomination instead, just like Christians, just like Islam. I was born and raised in the covenant of Brigham Young's branch off the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I grew up when the church was teaching us to become scriptorians, to study our scriptures, because I was in the first group that had the new edition of the Quad with the Bible dictionary, topical guide, and footnoting. We were taught to use those in our study. The whole concept of read, ponder, pray, get the right feeling, and now you know everything? Dear God, how did you screw that up in Moroni? And so this is important to understand going into interpreting Revelation. A revelation is different than a prophecy. Prophecy is predicting the future. And so revelation is revealing the dates of when the prophecies are to occur. And so technically, by calling it revelation rather than prophecy, is still true to its name, because John gives us dates. But we're leading into it. As chapter 11 that I was asked to explain, and if it does indeed refer to the Mormons in Salt Lake City, is prior to his blatant revelations for the latter days, when it begins and when it ends. Chapter 12, chapter 19. Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. Oh, how true it is in Paleo-Hebrew. By the spelling of the word. And so, if you're also going, wait a minute, I'm brand new, Travis. What do you mean it's about Mormons? Isn't it about Jerusalem? You do not understand the manner of prophesying. They take a historical context and project it into the future. And so obviously the Roman period time is not going to exist right now. Neither is the Egyptian period when Moses' story of the Exodus occurs. These are what's called symbolisms, types and shadows of the future events. They're coded communication. If you're unfamiliar with Nostradamus, he likewise encoded his communication for prophecy. And so even though it has literal characters, literal historical characters, literal historical time frames and events, it was Constantine who turned them into literal history. And that's why there are so many problems with archaeology. Archaeology can't verify any of this. Yes, there was a Roman period. Yes, there was an Egyptian period. But the specific events, no Jesus, no Moses, no flood per se, at least at the time period that Usher guy created the date for Adam and Eve. People don't think of the context. But Matthew, in the case of Noah and the flood, says that it too is being used for the latter days. So it isn't a literal history event, even though there was a flood on Earth, 10,500 BCE. And yes, mankind lived prior to the flood. So how are mankind still around? Were they able to tread water for however long it was that the waters were over the earth? Yeah, so there is elements of truth in the Bible stories of historical fact, but you can't take them literally. You will be screwed up. And it's abominable that Christianity have been trying to force the Bible as scientific archaeological history in our public school systems to destroy the scientific fields. And so Joseph Smith, by saying that the Book of Mormon is in the learning of the Jews, and that he, therefore, is organizing his church in the learning of the Jews, tells us in section 103, verse 17, that Mormons are to be the children of Abraham, the children of Israel. By saying that, Joseph Smith is decoding the prophecies for you, saying that we are to place ourselves into the Jewish prophecies of the latter days. And so knowing when the latter days are is kind of important to know. And yeah, we're already in it. And so when it talks about the Christ, it's the Jewish Christ that Joseph Smith says is a Mormon. It is not Jesus. Even though the Book of Mormon has the name Jesus, even though Joseph Smith has the name Jesus, it was not the name of Joseph's church. Those were the Brighamite Danites who sabotaged Joseph. You are supposed to use the interpretation of the Jews. You cannot use Christian interpretation. That is abominable. You become the enemy. You become an anti-Semite. You deny the founder. You deny the keystone. And so, knowing this, let us begin. Revelation chapter 10. I thought you were going over chapter 11, Travis. The original manuscript, which was on papyrus, was all one text. They were not divided into chapters and verses. And so you do need to know the previous material that leads into chapter 11. And then after giving us chapter 11, they go right into chapter 12 to tell us when the dates are of the latter days. The beginning of when the Christ is coming. Okay? And so John is having a prophecy vision with the communication with an angel. And the angel says unto him, no, John says to the angel, let me read it. And I went unto the angel and said unto him, give me the little book that is talked about earlier. And he said unto me, take it. Now understand that the original document was in Greek. And if we were to use Hebrew, there would be some added understanding of the words. Angel in Hebrew is Malachi. So the book of Malachi is the book of the angel. The book of the messenger is what it's actually translated as. Angel is a Constantine Christian alteration. But in Greek, there was the word for angel. Evangelical, it has angel in it, but it's message in translation. And so it's still messenger here. And it shall make thy belly bitter, as he's supposed to take it and eat it up. But it shall be in thy mouth sweet as honey. And he takes the little book out of the angel's hand and ate it up, and it was in my mouth sweet as honey. He's repeating, he's fulfilling the prophecy. Oh no. And as soon as I had eaten it, my belly was bitter. This is a pattern with Joseph Smith and his second vision. Receives a book. From who? Malachi, an angel. And it's talking about the day that shall burn as an oven. From what book? Malachi. It's talking about the latter days. So utter destruction in the book that Joseph Smith receives from the angel, who is as the sun at noonday. Emmanuel, the Christ, the name of the Christ given by Isaiah, who is the Egyptian sun god. And so, if you know your scriptures, you would know and recognize that, sure enough, Lehi, his second vision, is an exact same pattern match as well. Lehi receives a book from a messenger who is the sun god at noonday, and it's about the destruction of Jerusalem. The utter destruction of the people. See the pattern? And so likewise, John in Revelation. And the Book of Mormon also tells us to refer to John's Book of Revelation. That it is a pattern match. And so to connect it to Joseph Smith's second vision is also important to do, because all of the prophecies are about us, remember? Joseph Smith's second vision is specifically talking to us, and it's an exact pattern match of the Book of Mormon, and the Book of Mormon tells us it's an exact pattern match of the Book of Revelation. So there it is. There's the pattern match. And Revelation chapter 12 gives us the date of the latter days, of which we need to begin to wonder and worry about the day that shall burn as an oven. And when you know the dates, and you know the end date in Revelation chapter 19, you should all be panicking and freaking out. Because we're near the end. And so the angel says unto John, thou must prophesy, predict the future. Again, before many peoples, nations, tongues, and kings. This is the latter days now. And he gives us the date of when it begins in Revelation chapter 12. And so first, the angel gives him a reed like unto a rod. And they have the footnote here to Ezekiel, who likewise receives a reed and is measuring the temple. And the angel stood. Now they correctly say, the Greek text omits, and the angel stood, because it's understood in the context. But because this was made a new chapter, we are now confused if we do not go back to chapter 10 in the preceding verses, that John is talking with an angel. And so technically it's supposed to be, and the angel gave unto him a reed like unto a rod, and said unto John, rise and measure the temple of God and the altar and them that worship therein. And so, and the angel stood. It's not necessary. You just need to know the context. Because technically it doesn't say he stands, but they put stand because of rise. The angel is telling John to rise. And so, yeah, don't worry too much about knowing the Greek and knowing Hebrew in this. It will add to your understanding, but this is just a basic overview for you. And we continue in verse 2. But the court which is without the temple leave out, and measure it not. So now you need to know the blueprints of the temple that he's referring to. But he's talking about the future. We were just told it's not the Jerusalem temple. It is the future Zion temple. For it is given unto the Gentiles, the future. Notice that the Zion temple is not the Jews. It is not to be in Jerusalem. He is not talking about the Jews in the future. He's not talking about the Jewish land, the Jewish temple, not Jerusalem. Right there. He just said it. And yet, all of Christians, all of Islam, and members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, as told by their prophets, all believe that it is about Jerusalem. It is about Jesus coming to Jerusalem. It is about the Jerusalem temple that will be rebuilt over the ruins of the Dome of the Rock, which was built on the ruins of the two previous Jewish temples. Now, do you understand why there's a war in Israel right now? Why the whole world is claiming that Israel are war criminals when it was the UN that was caught causing the war with Hamas on October 7th. Hilarious. They got exposed for who they are. Anti-Semites who want to cause the genocidal extermination of the Israelis. Now, do you understand why Netanyahu says bleep you? And why it's abominable that America will not step in and defend Israel, even though we have to now deal with other wars in the Middle East. All of this is done on purpose because of the wrong interpretation of the book of Revelation. They are purposely fulfilling their interpretation of Revelation to be the bad guys, because they believe that by being the bad guys, that they will be rewarded with the coming of Jesus. Because they'll say, oh, we believe in you. You're here. We helped you. We brought you to come and save us and convert these heathens and murder them. Yeah, you cannot produce good results from being bad. They should have known this if they believed in their Bible, which was written by the Jews, but even wrongly interpreted by Christians and Islam, still presents the correct message for them, which they just apparently don't want to believe in. Nonetheless, and the holy city, this is Zion, not Jerusalem. New Jerusalem, Joseph Smith tells us, is in America, because it's about Mormons in the future, in the latter days, with the date. What's the date, Travis? We've not been following you. 2017 to 2024. Okay? Can we move on? Shall they tread underfoot 40 and 2 months? That's 3.5 years. There's a pattern with this. And so technically, you need to understand context. Because again, this cannot be taken literally. You don't impose the Jerusalem temple in America. You don't impose Jerusalem in America. You don't impose the Romans in America, just like you don't do it with the Egyptians. He's using his symbolism for the future. And so 40 and 2 months is symbolic. 3.5 years, symbolic. And there are those who try to attach gematria to it, which is Jewish Kabbalism, because of Revelation chapter 13, in which the number of the beast is 666. That's the Roman numerals, IVXLCD. When you add them together. But Jewish Kabbalah didn't begin until 600 CE. This document is dated at the earliest to 200 CE. And so it is before Constantine, and therefore in the learning of the Jews, not the learning of the Christians. But it is unclear as to the gematria effect. Joseph Smith Sr., who is a Jewish, or was a Jewish Kabbalist, which is why we have the Tree of Life in the Book of Mormon, knows of Gematria as the Tree of Life itself is a prophecy from the death of Joseph Smith in 1844 to 2024, 180 years later. There are 8 points with 10 lines connecting the points. And 8 times 10 is 180. And 180 years is from the death of Joseph Smith to the birth of Zion, the end of the latter days. And I've done the picture for you in previous videos. And so the concept of the Father becomes the Son becomes the Father is also part of this play. You plant a seed in the ground, which seed came from fruit, which is the finished result of a seed. The cycle of plants, vegetation. Seed becoming fruit, fruit having seed to start the process over again, just like man, seed, woman, soil, womb, producing baby, that cycle of life process, which is in Scripture scientifically trying to teach us. And so the death of Joseph Smith and the end of his church with the usurpation by Brigham Young would produce Zion in the future, as the Christ would come out of Brigham Young's church to rescue Mormons. Verse 16, which comes from Deuteronomy 18:15 through 19, the Jewish Christ in the law of the Jews, who is in the future. And John tells us he comes in 2017. And Joseph Smith tells us he comes to Mormons in Utah in 2017 to warn Mormons and get them to Zion if they will listen and believe. Oops. Utter destruction. That's why you're going to be screaming and panicking and cutting yourself and flogging, which is Catholic repentance. From the Da Vinci Code, the assassin, when he flogs himself, he was repenting. Okay? And so, yes. If we take this into the future of when Zion is supposed to be built, and the latter days built, we would have to go to Revelation 19 for the start of the millennium. And that's April 2024. And so 3.5 years would take us 2021, 2022, 2023, and then the 6 months for the 3.5. So 2021. And sure enough, it was after the Exodus that you all missed. And so 2020, the Jewish calendar is different than our calendars. It starts in September for the new year, depending on whether it's the civil or religious calendar. But as the date of the beginning of the latter days, or when the Christ comes to begin his ministry to Mormons, is in September, the 23rd of September 2017. We see that is to be used as the New Year time frame for the calendar system being used here. And so it'd be 2021, well, actually 2020 in September. See how that works? And so it is the Exodus year. From the Exodus year to the end of the latter days and the start of the millennium is 42 months. 3.5 years. Okay? And it's close because it's technically March, but it's at the end of September 23rd and April 8th. And so it's close, off by several days. But he's not being completely specific here. He is when he gets to chapter 12. But here's something interesting. And I will give power, and as the footnote says, there is no power in the Greek text. I will give unto my 2 witnesses, and they are prophets, and they shall prophesy. 1,260 days, 3.5 years. Clothed in sackcloth. These are the 2 olive trees and the 2 candlesticks standing before the God of the earth. Okay? Now this might be confusing because they're not the Christ, but they are prophesying during these 3.5 years. The Christ has already come. 23rd September 2017. But they are standing before the Christ. They are prophesying. Remember Joseph Smith talking about the Christ in the future. Joseph Smith in 2 Nephi chapter 3 verse 5. Joseph of Egypt prophesies that a seer rather than a prophet from Deuteronomy 18 will come. And the prophet is a seer, because he has visions and dreams with prophecies that predict the future, with angels talking to them. Joseph Smith's visions. And it's talking about the coming of Joseph Smith for the purpose of the coming of the Christ of Joseph Smith's religion, Mormon. And so Joseph Smith is directly connected. And the Jews, likewise, let us know this. Because the author of the different Torah books, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, all separate authors. They are not the same author. And so Deuteronomy, the law, is referring to the Exodus, as Genesis is a completely separate thing, talking about a different name of the actual Christ for the future. But the Exodus author uses and refers to Genesis to lead into Exodus. They're referring to each other. Deuteronomy is referring to Exodus, and Exodus is referring to Genesis. And Matthew is referring to all three. As well as Isaiah and Jeremiah. And so Joseph is the Christ, but it's interesting how the Book of Mormon writes about him, because it treats it as if it is literal history, as the author, or as the people who combined the books together into a series for the Septuagint and the Latin Vulgate texts. This was the first time that the Bible was assembled into a book form, into an order, and left out other books that they disapproved of. So no one understands this. They're all separate books. They're not technically supposed to be put in the order that they've been put in. And that you also need to know. And so even though the story of Genesis is leading to Joseph of Egypt as the latter-day Christ, whom Joseph Smith says would be a Mormon, the Book of Mormon indicates a dualism of prophecy, just like the Jews who believe that Joseph precedes the coming of Moses. And if Moses is the Mormon Christ, who preceded the Mormon Christ? Joseph. 2 Nephi chapter 3, verse 5. And thus Joseph is referred to as Joseph of Egypt, preceding the Mormon who would be the Christ of the latter days. Did I make that complicated? And so, who died? Joseph Smith and Hiram died. They are the two witnesses, prophesying as if from the dust, through the Book of Mormon, being used by the Mormon Christ to convince Mormons of the truth of the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith in the learning of the Jews, not Christian abomination, with the abominable Christ Jesus, of the false prophet whose name is Lucifer, baby name meaning. Mars is the husband of Venus. Venus's symbol is the inverted pentagram of Lucifer. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? Lucifer is Mars. Mars is the red star in the sea of heaven. So I wonder if there's anybody with the baby name meaning of red star in the sea who leads the great and abominable church of Jesus Christ. And so likewise, the name of the Christ of Mormons, Sun God, that's the translation. It's an Egyptian word, and it is translated as sun god at noonday specifically. And so that's why it's in the Book of Mormon, that's why it's in the Bible of the Jews, that's why it's in Joseph Smith's writings. This is our Christ. This is his name, literally his name. Mormons should be looking since 23rd September 2017 and for the name of their Christ, who is one of them, Sun God. And it would be the last name, the surname. And the scriptures also give us his full name. The Rabbi of the latter days, of the crossroads of the sun god Wagoneer. It's all right here in Scripture, if you understand the learning of the Jews and you don't use Christian interpretation. And so fire doesn't proceed out of their mouths. It's talking about the day that shall burn as an oven. And so that's part of the prophesying that they're talking about, being used as symbolism of actual people doing supernatural stunts. No such thing. This is prophecy. And so he's warning of utter destruction, of the fall of the great and abominable church and the enemies of Zion, the day that shall burn as an oven. And so, yes, Brigham Young used the signs in the heavens to murder Joseph Smith. I did the chart. I've shown you the chart. I even showed you recently that chart, as I forgot on the one video and put it in another one. And I think it's also on Academia. Yeah, because I forgot on the video that I was supposed to put it in, I then linked you to my Academia page where I have the chart. And so, because this was the false accusers who murdered Joseph using the signs in the heavens, yeah, Deuteronomy 19 now took effect for the false accusers. They got the same punishment. And so, when Wilford Woodruff tells us in the official declaration number 1, verse 11, that God would immediately remove the false prophet who leads Mormons astray, that's how he does it, through the signs in the heavens, so that Mormons would know who the false prophets are. And sure enough, that's what the chart means. Because they murdered Joseph under a sign in the heavens of the sun shall be darkened, moon turned to blood, so likewise has every single president of Brigham Young's church. Except for Nelson, because he's not dead yet. I'm not dead yet. Yes, you are. No, I'm feeling quite better. And they have power to shut the heaven, that it rain not in the days of their prophecy. 2020, when it begins. Remember, 3.5 years. When was the Exodus? 2020. The Book of Mormon even gives us the precise date, too. Joseph Smith Sr. is awesome. He prophesied. And so, yes, the waters parted, dry land appeared for Mormons to pass through on dry ground, and you missed it. And so, yes, here we see the Exodus. This is what he's referring to. The Exodus of Moses, which is the pattern for the latter days, the Christ of the latter days. That Deuteronomy, the law, tells us that this is what it's all about. And so John the Revelator is doing the exact same thing as a Jew, writing this book, prophesying, predicting of the future, revealing to us the dates. This is 2020 right here. We know this from the whole context of Scripture, but mostly thanks to Joseph Smith Sr. in the Book of Mormon. Lehi has his Exodus 300 or 600 years before the coming of the Christ. Are we sure? In 2017, huh? He leaves? Yeah, no. He's referring to Abraham sacrificing Isaac, which date is 8 April 4 CE, which is exactly 20 years before the last day of the latter days on 8 April 2024. Thus, 2020 is the Exodus. Very clever of Joseph Smith Sr. to do that. He had to rewrite the 116 pages in case you're brand new. And so the plagues. Yeah, creeping death. 2020. And you still pay the great and abominable false prophet who murdered your friends and family with creeping death. He called China in January. He knew, and he did not warn you. He did not prepare you. That was his moment of glory to prove that the church is true, and instead he proved it's false. He let you die. He purposely made sure that you died, forced everything to open early, caused the deaths of many missionaries throughout the world. And here in the United States, many Mormons died from it. And yet you had it right there in the scriptures what to do when it happens. And you didn't even believe the scriptures. And your Christ, likewise, also warned you, but YouTube silenced his YouTube channel, prevented him from doing videos, and took down the videos warning you to follow the medical professionals. YouTube also murdered you under orders of the church. And now it's a little page in the history books, as it's still going on. Yesterday, Utah still keeping track of the dead numbers. It's a different formatting than it was under Herbert, but they still are keeping track of the number of dead that occur in Utah. And so Joseph and Hiram shall lie in the street of the great city. Let's find out where Carthage is, because it's not Nauvoo, and I think it is actually closer to southern Illinois. But yeah, it prophesies of the murder of Joseph and Hiram. As Joseph Smith Sr., knowing this, he had to make the choice to choose Joseph and Hiram to be the fulfillment. He did not choose Samuel. He did not choose William or Don Carlos. Alvin was already dead. But 9/11/1826, that's when Joseph Smith Sr. was duty-bound as the Master Mason of the Lodge in Canandaigua, New York, to make sure that the Book of Mormon got published and make sure that the enemy did not prevent him from getting it published. And that's when he had to choose his two sons who were to be the keepers of the Holy Grail. Knights Templar, York Rites, Freemasonry. And so he had to choose his sons. And since Junior was clearly the one who went with Senior to his lodge rather than Hiram to his lodge in Palmyra, and since Hiram was the one who had been a member in the lodge, not Samuel or William, therefore that's why they were chosen. Junior as the startup, because he was there with his father, with William Morgan, knowing about the Book of Mormon, and Hiram, who was also a member. And thus the Christ of Mormons comes through Hiram's bloodline, seed. I've done those pictures to explain it to you. Carthage, Illinois. Why are you not taking me to the map, Google? Opening maps. Los Carlos. Los Cheros. What happened to the valley? The valley is gone. Valley of the Giant, Green Giant. And there's a Circle K. Cedar Rapids, Springfield, where the Simpsons live. Okay, it is just north of St. Louis. And so it is also north of Independence. And so it is further in the north, not in the south. Okay. But yeah, this is the land where Zion would be, even though it's not near X marks the spot. Interesting. Okay. And so this isn't supposed to be Zion. There's not supposed to be the murder of the Christ in Zion. He's not supposed to die, even though his death sign in heaven is on 8 April 2024. And so this seems to be what John is referring to here, is that their death is about the prophecies 180 years later, their death, 8 April 2024, the death sign. Okay? Which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt. See, they now also threw in the story of Sodom being destroyed as a similar prophecy symbolism for you. And so, yeah, pillar of salt, the wife of Lot, that the daughters of Zion end up going with the Christ, who is Lot. But the whore stays behind and turns into the great salt pillar by the lake. Even though they use the Dead Sea as their visual description, it's talking about the future. And so now we know, because we're in it, and so the Sodom is Salt Lake City. And Mormons who refuse to go in the Exodus, the daughters of Zion who do not go in the Exodus, are destroyed by the fire from heaven, the day that shall burn as an oven, which is similar in pattern with the Exodus and the other prophecies. See how it works? All because Joseph Smith said, "You are the children of Israel," which was technically from Joseph Smith Sr. He was a New Israelite where he learned Jewish Kabbalah in Vermont. And when they shall have finished their testimony, in latter days, 8 April 2024, conference weekend, the beast that ascended out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them, and shall overcome them and kill them. No Zion, we're doomed. No, that's the two witnesses, Joseph and Hiram. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. where also our Lord was crucified. See what he did there? The sign of the death of the cross of Christ. They didn't use crosses in the Roman period time. The author of Matthew, Luke and John, Matt and Mark, were giving you the date of 8 April 2024, where X marks the spot on earth where New Jerusalem would be. There it is, right there. He gives you the date. He gives you the location. And he gives you the name of your Christ. Remember? And they of the people and kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half. Say again, 42. But here he's using days instead of months, and instead of years. 3 days and a half, not 3 years and a half, not 42 months. And shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves. Yeah, they kind of left them there for dead. I don't know if it was 3.5 days, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't, because John Solomon Fulmer would eventually get there after it happened with the Nauvoo Legion, and would have taken the bodies back to the Mormons. And they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them, and make merry and send gifts one to another, because these two prophets, Joseph and Hiram, tormented them that dwelt on the earth, warning us of the danger. You're tormenting us. Stop it. Same the way the Mormons treat the Christ. You're tormenting us. Stop it. And after 3 days and a half, the Spirit of life from God entered into them. Yeah, I just did the video and nobody watched it. I had the thumbnail picture made for you, brilliantly done. Yeah, Jehovah is the spirit that breathes into Adam in the chapter 2. That's why he's given the new name Jehovah, Yahweh, from Yah, which is his actual name in Genesis chapter 1, which Joseph Smith correctly says the author, which it is in the original document. It's the ones who, the Masoretes as well as the Septuagint and the Vulgate, were the ones who screwed up the translation of the original document. But yeah, Yah is the God of chapter 1, the Hebrew God. And he is given the new name after he completes his task that he was assigned to do, the creation, parting the waters for the dry land to appear for the Christ to lead Mormons to Zion. Yeah, the author of Genesis is talking about the future. And you took it literally as if that's how the earth was created. Oopsies. And so, yeah, the Christ, Jehovah, Yahweh, the Christ, Emmanuel, is them in the latter days, speaking their words, restoring Joseph's Jewish religion with the interpretation in the learning of the Jews of the Book of Mormon. The baby is born to rule the world with the Iron Rod Book of Mormon. That's why they call the Book of Mormon the Iron Rod. They did that on purpose. And so the Father becomes the Son becomes the Father. And they heard a great voice from heaven, saying unto them, Come up hither. And they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, where earth louds his fame. Hail to the prophet ascended to heaven. We are the traitors and the enemies who murdered him with the Judas money of the Danites, called tithing, section 119. And so, yeah, the sign in the heavens. 8 April 2024, the coming of the Christ in the clouds of glory, ascended up into heaven as a sign in the heavens, like the clouds. 8 April 2024, Revelation 19. That's the sign. That's the death sign. And so Samuel the Lamanite in the Book of Mormon says, hey, there's the birth sign, 23rd September 2017, and the death sign, which is also in 3rd Nephi chapter 11. The Mormons are gathered to Zion talking about the death sign that occurred on 8 April 2024. Because you didn't go in the Exodus, you now have to experience the destruction that the Book of Mormon goes over in chapters 8, 9, and 10. After the election fraud and attempted coup of the government in chapter 7. As they're doing it again, it was in 2020 too. 2020. TOO. And now they're repeating it. Purposely repeating it because they didn't get away with it the first time in 2020 because Mormons didn't go in an Exodus. So here we go. Here we go again. And so yeah, notice that the election is after the sign in the heavens. If it keeps getting extended, I'm going to scream. I've known of this all the way back when Fox 13 News Utah announced it at 10 in the morning, at the end of the show, saying that the first day of darkness is to occur on the 21st of August 2017 on November 4th, 2016. My jaw dropped. My #1 video still, because the church ordered YouTube to silence me, is that video going over those signs in the beginning in 2017. Because my wife at the time demanded I give her the date. I just found out we're in the latter days, dear. I'm cramming to find out. And she hears impatient. And she couldn't endure and left. But fulfilled prophecy. And so, yeah. Yep. All right. Where are we? 13? And the same hour was there a great earthquake. And the 10th part of the city fell. So the city is supposed to be divided into 10 parts. I am curious. I don't think so. I don't think it's 10. 17. But it's not a tenth, it's a 10th part. So it's divided into 10 sections, and the 10 sections are not of equal size, necessarily. So the third part of heaven fell to earth. Yeah, that wasn't an equal portion of pre-existing spirits. It was 3 groups, and the size and number vary. And so here's 10 parts of the city, and size varies. And in the earthquake were slain of men 7,000. And the remnant were affrighted, and gave glory to the God of heaven. That would be Emmanuel. This earthquake on 8 April 2024, the day that shall burn as an oven. If it's a nuclear bomb, yeah, it will be a big earthquake. A big boom and a big burning. If this is how they are going to make it happen. It's the enemy that's in charge of this. Like I told you, the enemy is purposely doing all this to fulfill prophecy of the Jews with their Christian and Islamic interpretation. So that they can show that they're righteous for their Christ. It sounds evil to me, because it is. So this is what you need to understand, that the earthquake that all Mormons were waiting for after the earthquake in Magna, which Magna means strong one, he that is strong. The one mighty and strong. Gabriel, the God of strength, who announced the birth of Jesus. And sure enough, it was the day after his birthday, as prophesied by everybody. Not 23rd September 2017, his actual birthday prophecy. The Mormon Christ. And guess what happened with that earthquake in Magna by he who is the Mormon Christ, the one mighty and strong of section 85. The man like Moses of section 103, verse 16. Yeah, the horn of Moroni got knocked out. And that was a foreshadowing to warn Mormons. And what year was that when it happened? Oh yeah, 2020. And Mormons still pay Nelson. They still thank thee, O God, for a prophet who's murdering them and stealing their money. They thank thee, O God, for the great and abominable church with the great and abominable Christ. So yeah, we've got another one coming this year, Mormons. The big one. And so, whether this is a separate earthquake, I don't know how in the world they can predict those. That is beyond me. I tried once, because I was paying attention to the news reporting earthquakes around the world, big earthquakes, and started to catch on to a pattern. As the earth rotates, it goes in waves around the earth, and that's why I was noticing a pattern, and then it stopped the pattern. Messed me up. Anomalies all over the place. So very sad that I couldn't figure it out. So if this is just an earthquake and not because of the day that shall burn as an oven, wow. Mormons are in for some big trouble. And so 7,000, that's not very many. There's more than that if it's in downtown by Temple Square. That's where most people go to work. They commute into the city. So it'll be more the day after conference. And the remnant were affrighted and gave glory. Yeah, now they go, oh yeah, Travis was right. I knew it all the time, Travis. I was listening. I believed. Honest. It wasn't me that put the thumbs down on your videos. The second woe is past. The third woe cometh quickly. And the seventh angel sounded. And there were great voices in heaven, saying, the kingdom of this world and the kingdoms of our Lord and his Christ shall reign forever and ever. The millennium starts. The crowning of the Messiah, which requires a female to be married to, which is interesting. My patriarchal blessing, given by my extended ancestor, this extended relative, who was the patriarch of our stake, it just happened to be the case. Because he has no authority to be a patriarch, because Brigham Young does not have authority over the patriarch. And yet, he eventually put in George Albert Smith to continue on the patriarchy. He has no authority to assign George Albert Smith to do that. That's Hiram. But through Hiram will come the actual Christ, which is why Hiram's wife and son had to go with Heber C. Kimball to fulfill prophecy. They just can't let Heber C. Kimball know this. And so, yes, it's sad, tragic that Heber C. Kimball fully indoctrinated Joseph Fielding Smith as he became a tyrant when he took over the leadership of the church. And then put in the Way to Perfection, which was compiled by his son, in which he says that Lucifer will attend Adam on Diamond and give Jesus the keys of government. Oops. Deuteronomy 19 now takes effect. It's Nelson who gives it to the Mormon Christ with destruction. That you just had heard me read, because you're not following along, are you? Okay, and so the end of the latter days and the start of the millennium. And I got the Egyptian calendar that I went and did the video for you, and nobody cared. There are people, a large number of people who were pissed with me for that video. Oh my God. It's like trolling a person online who does a birthday haul or a Christmas haul. This is what I got for my birthday. This is what I got for Christmas. And everybody puts thumbs down. You suck. And so, yes, on the Jewish calendar, 8 April 2024 is the last day of the year. So, yeah, this is huge, Mormons. Why are you not believing? You'd rather follow a murderer. Oh, he's just misunderstood, Travis. He's a good guy. He didn't mean to murder us. Yeah, he did. You're being abused in the relationship. Get out. Get the divorce. Leave them. Get out of Babylon. And so 24 elders sat before God on their seats, fell upon their faces, worshipped Emmanuel. And so, yeah, this is the myth that people are claiming that Joseph Smith had designed for Zion. That there were going to be 24 cities around the capital cities of Zion and New Jerusalem. I cannot find the original document of Joseph. It's just those who went with Brigham Young, who were Danites, who were making the claim of Joseph. And so I don't hold any value to it until I can find a Joseph Smith paper that talks about this from Joseph. So until then, this is where it comes from anyway, though. And their intention was that each tribe of Israel are supposed to be in each of the cities, and thus segregate people, so that the white master race are in Zion and New Jerusalem, and those of other countries who are other colors, they already are planning to have racism in their Zion. God. So anyway, this is specifically 24 elders. Moses goes to the elders of the house of Israel before going to Pharaoh's court. So likewise, you need to find your Christ, whose name is Son God, who will go and send a letter to the presidency of the 70. Not the CES letter to the CES director. Not that one. Oh, you're showing the views on that one, are you? Well, it's doing fairly well. 100 views in 11 hours, which means there's more views than that. Interesting. People are actually watching this one. Are people going to watch this one too? So then let's go to this one, this one, where is it? There it is. There it is. Why did you not put that first? Yeah, you have to go to TWG channel. It's only 11 minutes, 22 seconds, and there's no thumbnail picture for it. Whether that's because the YouTube Mormon employee deleted them. He did a whole bunch of deletions of thumbnail pictures that I had put on here. Gone. God. And he laughs at me. He thinks it's funny being a cyber terrorist, protecting the church by committing crimes. So funny. And so they are now singing and chanting, please don't. We thank thee, O Lord God Almighty, which art and wast and art to come, because thou hast taken to thee thy great power and hast reigned. And it keeps on going, I guess, because and the nations were angry, and thy wrath has come, and the time of the dead, and they should be judged, and that thou shouldst give reward unto thy servants, the prophets, and to the saints. Yeah, these 24 angels are acknowledging finally that he is the one of prophecy. That's all this is. Mormons finally realize, because they are now compelled to believe, because they couldn't humble themselves to believe and search the scriptures to find their true learning of the Jews Christ. This is what it means. So don't get all happy about this. And so yeah, this is after 8 April 2024. He now is recognized as the one who was warning them. He is their Christ, fulfilling all prophecies. Not just some, all. That's what people don't get. All these other people who claim to be the Christ and the Messiah, or those who believe that so-and-so is the Christ and the Messiah, they are not using all the prophecies to run the test. All the prophecies. Chad Daybell, not all the prophecies. Not even the right name. It's not Christ Chad. Chad the Christ. No, wrong name. Brian David Mitchell, he changed his name. Still got it wrong, because he's not the Christ. Muhammad, wrong name. Oops. Constantine, Jesus. Oops, wrong name. It's the one simple thing, nobody gets it right. And thus, why are people getting fooled by these guys? And so, art, wast, and art to come, that's seer. Past, present, future. He was seen as vision. He is the seer. He is of prophecy, he is, and he is the fulfillment to come. And so, and the nations are angry, and thy wrath is come, and the time of the dead, that they should be judged. This has to do with the judgment for Zion. Those who go to Zion, those who die in the day that shall burn as an oven. Section 85. Those of the apostate, antichrist, anti-Mormon Korah whores don't go to Zion. They're cut off. They do not get into the highest degree of the celestial kingdom, which is the first judgment. You thought it was for the afterlife, did you? Who told you this? Which church? It's for Zion. That's the first day of judgment, not the Roman period time. Thus why you think Moroni is some exalted person from the first resurrection. No! This is the first resurrection. The resurrection of Joseph Smith's church. Restoration. Joseph Smith and the prophecies of Zion are made manifest in the flesh in these latter days. Spirit and body reunited. This is the first day of judgment for those who go to Zion, who are celestial, and get to keep their sex organs. You do understand that, right? If you haven't been watching the videos lately, Jasmine was asking the question about this, and so I explained to her. Where are you, Jasmine? Quit teasing me. I miss you. You ask questions that become bombshell videos, and so I wait for your comments. And then you just abandon me. You get attacked by deer. Are you okay? You said you had head trauma. You need to be careful of that. The doctors should have made you be cautious and keep checking on them. You know, yesterday, you were supposed to be taking on Sean to see who reigns supreme as the top DJ. It is you, right? Even though Sean cheated. I want to know. Don't leave me. And so, yeah, that's what this is all about. You can't turn the symbolism into literal history or literal future history. You will be screwed up and create Saturday's Warriors. The great and abominable movie. And that thou shouldst give reward unto thy servants, the prophets, and to the saints. Yeah, you get to come to Zion, where everybody gets what they want and need, because they are contributing to Zion. They are at peace. They are the only place on earth that will be at peace, safety, and refuge, while the rest of the world descends into chaos and hell with war and bloodshed and death. Just should destroy them which destroy the earth. Yeah, they do it themselves. The Christ doesn't go around murdering people. They do it. Alma refers to this, talking about the Amlicites who mark themselves with red in their forehead. A clear connection to Revelation chapter 13, the mark of the beast in their forehead. 666, MAGA, the baseball cap. And the Mormon author, Cindy Rigdon, which actually, Oliver Cowdery made some contributions, as we learned from linguistic science. But let's just stick to the author, the so-called author. Mormon takes a moment to explain to his audience that God did not cause the Amlicites to mark themselves in their forehead. They did. They brought about themselves their own curse with the consequences of their actions. And that's also supposed to be understood for the Lamanites, that the black skin is not black skin. It's, again, symbolism. Just like the red skin of the Amlicites. They did it. They marked themselves. Just like the Lamanites. They did it. They marked themselves. It is not the origin of blacks. It is not white supremacy. It's symbolism. But Mormons want to take it literal, because they're no longer racist since 1978. I call BS. And so, yeah, we choose our consequences. And this is the consequences for the earth if they are going to continue to be wicked. They are going to destroy each other. Utter destruction of the wicked. And so the day that shall burn as an oven, Joseph Smith makes it very clear. They that come shall burn Mormons. It's not God. God, through his Christ, warns Mormons, and they choose not to listen and believe. And thus it will happen because of their wickedness. Mormons will cause it. The prophets will use the Mormons' tithing money to pay for it with the Judas prize. And Mormons will continue to pay the prophets to make them rich, and thank thee, O God, for a false Christ and a false prophet who murders them with their own money. Okay? And the temple of God in Zion was opened in heaven. Zion in the heavens. And there was seen in the temple the Ark of the Testament, the evidence of the truth of the literal history. It's the Ark of the Covenant. Again, this is in heaven. This isn't real. Even though the Egyptians made lots of Ark of the Covenants. Put them in the Holy of Holies even. Even sailed down the Nile in the Ark of the Covenant. Now, it is literal, has a literal context, but this is figurative. And have any of you even seen the pictures that I made of the Holy of Holies in the Salt Lake Temple with the Ark of the Covenant in it? No? All the work I do with my limited ability for making cool pictures. And so, yeah, an earthquake and great hail. Yeah, this is again back to the Exodus. Fire from heaven and the earthquake and the booms and all that. And so, yeah, lightning and thundering, that's the god Zeus, which you take off the us, which is masculine singular ending, and you got Zu, or Za, and so Za is Yah, pictorially the match in Paleo-Hebrew of Yah, the Hebrew god. Yah and Za are the same god. It's just the Greeks tell different stories of their Yah, and the Hebrews told different stories of their Za. It should be Za, not Yah. Yah is when the Jews got taken captive into Babylon and became fully assimilated into all things Babylon, and thus changed Paleo-Hebrew into what's called Semitic Hebrew. And scholars know this, but they won't acknowledge it because they haven't deciphered Paleo-Hebrew. I did. And so there you have it. And so then, when is this going to happen? This is what everybody asks. Even the disciples in the story to Jesus in Matthew 24 starts it off. When are you coming back? Well, the Son of Man is coming. No, we're asking about you. When are you coming back? Well, the Son of Man is coming. And Christians screw it up because they're not paying attention to what is being said. And so here it is. This is the first year of the latter days when Mormons are supposed to be looking for all of this to be fulfilled. And so then we get to chapter 19 and boom, there it is. So we're told who our beast is, who the false prophet is. We're given the dates. Monson, when he dies, right here, verse 4. His birthday is on the day of the first day of darkness, 21st of August. Bye-bye. Shouldn't have murdered Joseph. God is angry. And so there you have it. Revelation chapter 11. Okay. So thank you, Paul, for the email.